For this piece we're going to be looking at the artist Kalanda. So what I've done is I've picked my image and I've gone for a group of elephants. Now while looking at my images I've tried to find something that represents the artist's style, and he seems to look at a lot of animals from different unique angles. So a lot of them come from an underneath angle facing up at animals. So I've chosen an elephant. I found an image online on Google, fits really well with this style, so I'm going to have that on my laptop, and then I've also decided to put up a picture of his work so I can look at the sort of detail that he uses, and I'm going to have that in front of me as well, just as a bit of a reference to help me with any of the shading and just to see the sort of detail that he actually uses in his work. Okay, so as you can see here, I have started off and I've already got my outlines prepared. I've done these really lightly and I've used a rubber just in case I've made any mistakes. I have started to work on one of the other elephants here, but I'm going to show you now on this larger one how to incorporate lighter tones, darker tones, and how to get lots of detail in there, exactly like the artist. So first thing you need to do, as I said, do your outline, and you might want to get yourself a piece of tissue or some kitchen roll. Kitchen roll is a bit more sturdier when you're using it. I'll show you exactly how to use it as well. It won't leave any bits of kitchen roll on there. So all I've done is I've got my piece of kitchen roll, I've rolled the end, and as you can see I have got some graphite on the end already, and I've got a rubber as well ready to do any rubbing out just to create any lighter tones. So got my outline, and now I'm going to start by adding some of the darker tones, lighter tones, and getting those details in there. So I'm actually going to start around this part of the head. Now you need to be careful when you are actually drawing this, is that you don't smudge it with your hand. So if you want to lay a piece of tissue down just to protect your hand, stop any smudging going on the base of your hand here and smudging it along your page, that is absolutely fine. Always rub it out afterwards, but it's just about getting you minimal mess on your actual piece of paper. So let's start then. So I'm actually going to start around the eye. You can start wherever you want to. It's all about preference. I just prefer to start in this area. So I'm going to start around the eye, and as I can see, my elephant's eye is quite dark. So it's all about pressure. Now I'm pressing quite hard to start off with. I want to leave a little bit of white in the eye. Don't worry if you don't get that, but I'm just going to do that for now just because I want it to look more 3D. And what I'm actually doing is I'm applying pressure first, because what happens is I can come in afterwards with my piece of tissue and actually start to blend out some of that. And it gives me that sort of mid-tone, but it helps with the texture as well. Something like an elephant, they've got quite rough skin. So if you think about where they live in Africa, really dry, their skin is going to replicate that sort of dryness. So it's really good technique for this sort of animal. Okay, go back in again, always looking at my image, so that bit's a bit darker there. And you can start to add little details in as you go, so once you've smudged, you'll be able to add those like sort of wrinkles that your elephant may have. Now it all depends on what type of animal you choose. If you're going for something a bit more fur, this is really good to get that base coat down, and then you can add them darker, harsher lines on the top. So it's all about getting that 3D shape. You want to make sure that your animal is actually looking realistic. Okay, that bit's a bit darker. So constantly looking at my actual images as well, looking back at the artist's style, seeing how he creates his lighter and darker tones. So again, I've put down this really dark area here, so I'm going to go back in and try and smudge some of that out, because I don't want it as harsh all over. And think about as well when you're doing this, what direction are you actually smudging in? So if you can actually follow the lines of the animal, so for instance like with the trunk, I'm actually going to go with the direction of the trunk, but as well there are sections where there's those wrinkles within it, so you might decide to follow that wrinkle pattern. And already that's starting to add a bit of shape. So it's all about finding your lighter and darker tones. You don't want them to be like the same tone. It makes really flat images. You really need to think about where you're layering your graphite, how hard you're pressing. All of these things are really important when doing sketches with graphite. Okay, so going back in again with my piece of kitchen roll. Now for any really dark areas, just go for it, really make them as dark as you can. You want to try and keep the shape, so try and draw in the direction you feel it go. So this is like the bottom lip on the elephant's mouth. So you can see how I'm drawing in the same direction of that lip would form. And then I'm just going to ease off slightly with my pencil shade in there, and then come back in just so I can blend it out so it doesn't look like I've got blocks of colour. I've got this smooth transition from darker to lighter tones. Now really look at where the blacks are. That is where you're going to press harder. Where you've got the lighter tones, you can come back in with a rubber. So for instance, this bit here, I feel it's just matching too much in tone, so I'm going to rub a bit out. And the good thing with this is you can always go back over and just press a little bit lighter. So already I've managed to get my variation in tone. Come back in again with my pencil, and now I'm just starting to add some of them details to where I've smudged it out. And this is how you build up, this is how you get really, really good 3D images. Now the tongue's a little bit lighter, it is red, so I don't want to smudge it too much, but I am going to smudge it slightly. Just because there is a slight shadow on there, but I want there to be a bit of a differentiation between that tongue and that bottom lip. And again, pressing a little bit harder on that top lip, top part of the elephant's mouth there, coming up to the tusk because that's where it's darkest. So for your animal, always look at what it is, where your dark tones are, where your light tones are, and really play around with it. There's a lot of wrinkles on an elephant, so you want to make sure you're getting all of those in. Now I'm not actually drawing the wrinkle itself, I'm actually drawing the shadow that the wrinkles form. Right, so I'm just going to add a bit to the ear here on the elephant. As you can see, I'm giving myself a bit of a base coat now. And then I can start to add my dark areas. So now if I wanted to rub those out to get lighter parts, it's not going to be too much to rub out. It is going to come out lighter. So I'm just going to start adding some of them darker shades in. Now, these aren't wrinkles on the elephant's ear. This is just how the ear falls on the body, and some of it kind of overlaps. So it's just giving it that bit of movement. I don't want a flat appearance to the ear. Again, come back in with my piece of tissue and just start to blend out. And you can see how I'm following the line in which I've drawn. I'm not just going everywhere, I'm actually following that direction, and that just helps to create that sort of shape. So now you can see I've got a bit of movement within the actual elephant's ear. You can go over some of them parts again. So it's not really harsh lines, it is blending nicely. And then just to make them stand out a bit more, I'm just going to go in between here, just to get some of these lighter areas. So I'm constantly thinking about what it is I'm doing with my pencil, where it is I want to make my lighter and darker areas appear, because I want to make sure it's looking 3D. So it may take you a little bit of time, but once you've got into the swing of it, understanding where to actually line up your different colours. So I know like this bit's a lot darker, but when I come out here, it lightens up a little bit. So I know to stop, and now I can blend that out. It's all about making it look 3D, getting those shapes in. So if you want to get your base tones done first, that's absolutely fine. You'll find your own way of working. I just like to work in stages, making sure that I'm getting detail in as I'm going. You can see how I'm constantly swapping between pencil and my bit of kitchen roll there. Okay, so you're going to continue that on the whole animal. You need to just keep looking, seeing where you can get your lighter areas, seeing how you can produce those dark areas. Look at all the detail that you are going to have on your animal. You can see exactly now I've got sort of my lines in there, my wrinkles, I've got all my dark areas, and I'm starting to get good shape and form. So have a good go and we'll see what you do.